Derek Wheatley, and welcome to episode 235 of the Wheatley podcast. Thank you very much for joining me. After quite a break away from it, I looked up the date, and it was actually the 31st of July where the last one came out, which was called Our Cultural Malaise. I had a bit of malaise myself around that time, and so when I took the break, I didn't really think about when I'd come back, and I think that was beneficial for me, basically, because I didn't think, all right, I'll give myself 2 weeks. So I gave myself obviously more than 2 weeks to kind of think about what I was doing. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I thought, that's it now. I'm done with the podcast, because I just found I had hit a brick wall when it came to the enjoyment factor of it. I didn't really enjoy it that much anymore, and it's very difficult to rouse any kind of enjoyment. Like, I can fake not being depressed quite well these days, but I can't really fake when I'm not enjoying something. I don't really want to either, because it's not fair on guests. They're taking time out of their day, and I was struggling with the idea of guests, because it was always quite anxious like moment for me when Zoom first opened up, and you saw the person you had never seen, or well, at least spoken to rather than seen. But and the initial, hellos and how's things and thank yous and all that was quite hard. And look, when we got into the flow of the conversation then on the podcast, it usually worked out quite well. But there was a couple of things happened in the lead up to my break, and it was, I took a couple of hits with regards to people who said they were coming on, then they couldn't come on for whatever reason. And I kind of, there was a couple of ones where we were set to record on a certain day, and that person couldn't do it like half an hour before the podcast, and I had everything set up, the usual crap lighting, but the microphone and all that kind of stuff. Um, and I set all the background stuff up before I talk, so I can immediately, like, switch, transfer it over to MP3 and get it in. It doesn't matter, all that kind of stuff. I always have that kind of ready to go. That was all ready to go. And they cancelled, and they said we'll do it next week, and then I didn't hear from them. And I always took that kind of as a personal slight, which it wasn't on their part, but I took it to heart, and I found it kind of quite damaging to my mental health, really. And I know I shouldn't, but that's just my nature or whatever. It doesn't, and so the break came at the right time, and the idea of having to interview more people was something that I was struggling with a little bit, I'll be honest. And it took about 4 weeks for me to realize that I needed to go in a different direction if I wanted to keep doing this podcast, because otherwise it would just go by the wayside. And I think a lot of podcasts go by the wayside, in general. They don't normally get to 234 episodes, to be fair. So I do think myself and John have done well to get that far. But a lot wouldn't make it there, and first up for many different reasons. But I think my one was just, I was kind of crashing and burning on the idea. So I thought then, I need to kind of get myself together and figure out a way to make this work, and make it exciting for me, and make it exciting for the listeners, more importantly. My own enthusiasm, I would like to think, will come out in these recordings, the next, how many ever episodes we do on this kind of thing. I'd like to think that my enthusiasm and my research and the enjoyment I get from things like this will come through, and then, it'll, the people who listen to it then will enjoy it as much. At first kind of idea was to get rid of the YouTube and get rid of the videos, because for the people who listen quite a bit, they know that I'm always complaining about the lighting or something else. I already complained about it. So this is going to be the last video. We will be coming off YouTube and just exclusively doing podcast platforms for now on. So for Spotify and Apple and Anchor, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. There is another reason for this, which I get into later on, but the main, well, no, actually, the main reason is probably the other reason. But this is a good enough way for me to do it that I can actually not have to worry about the quality of the lighting or what's in the background, and because I'm always whinging about something. So that's going to go. So The people who watch on YouTube, you can now switch over if you'd like to, and we get way more views on YouTube, so we're kind of damaging ourselves. But it'll be better in the long run. It'll be better for the podcast. Um, and like I said, there'll be no more guests. Well, I shouldn't say no more guests, but there might be the odd time there'll be a guest. Um, on a specialist subject that I'm talking about, maybe they've written a book about it or they've directed a documentary about it or something like that. Then I'll get a guest in. Again, we're not going to switch back to video just for a guest in. We'll just do it through Audacity or one of those recording platforms that we use. The name is not going to change. It's not going to make any sense, by the way. My friend Joanne pointed that out last week that it doesn't make sense. It's called the Wheatley now because it's not going to be weekly. It's going to be every 2 or 3 weeks, depending on how deep I have to go into a subject matter, how much research I have to do. I'm not going to hold myself to even 2 or 3 weeks. It could be a month in between. But these episodes are going to be properly researched by me, really looking into depth about things. So I'll need to watch films and read books and, go into the archives on in the internet and stuff to look up this stuff. And that's something that I like to do anyway, but I'm not going to be rushing through it. I want these things to be right. I don't like, if I get a couple of things wrong and someone says, well, that didn't happen in August of 1940, it happened in September, that kind of stuff. Might get a few things wrong like that, and that's fine. So it'll be every 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it might be, of deep dive. So every episode will be something different. So there might be something on an album that was made that has significance to me or significance culturally. Same to do with films, with literature. We'll be talking about history, like my video's gone there. That's the start of it now. But like history, people, places, events, ideas, all sorts of different things I'm already coming up with a list, and I have my notes on my phone. I've got 6 or 7 things already looked are suggested to myself. So it'll be a lot of interesting stuff, and I will mix it up as much as I can. So it won't be just music, film, whatever. It'll be a different kind of thing every episode. And I think that's another way of broadening the audience for the podcast. Because if you do something on a particular subject, say the Beatles or something like that, we might get some Beatle fans on board to listen to it, and it's difficult with guests because it's so niche to some of the stuff that we were doing on here. And if I do something about the Beatles, which like undoubtedly I will, actually I've already got one on the list, but it'll gather new listeners, and that's the whole point in doing something like this, to kind of join people together and um, get some sort of a conversation going on Instagram or Facebook or even in the comment section of the videos and all that, and where you're broadcasted, that kind of stuff. So it's going to be we want it to be more audience interaction with like polls and stuff on Instagram where I um put up a suggestion of what I'm going to do next, and then people will get to vote on what they would like to hear, things like that, just to get people involved. And so it's not just me, like I was the one picking the guests all the time, and um I'm so kind of stubborn sometimes that like people would be asking me could they come on, and there was something that I would kind of I'd push against that, which is silly, really. Like, but I was kind of pushed against it because I thought I was the one that should be picking the guests because I'm the one who has to be interested and be talking to them. So I guess that's trying to hand over a little bit of that. Like, if I pick ideas and whatever I might research and do a episode on, I'd like to think that people will come back and give me an idea, and then I can go and research it because that's something that excites me all the time. It's like I go real deep on a subject matter, and I'll be I'm reading a book at the moment, Strange Days Indeed, and um, it's a nonfiction book about the paranoia of the 70s and, with Nixon in America. And then you've got um, all the tough times that were going on in Britain and a lot of the strange stuff that was going on in the parliament when they had, was it Ted Heath back, and he was really paranoid about people spying on him. And even like Idi Amin, they talk about in the book, and coups, military coups, and all that. And that kind of stuff is fascinating. And I already took 2 examples of that, and I thought that'd be great, make for great episodes. Just incidents within the book that I think would be brilliant to listen to. are brilliant to, for me to read more about and to hopefully pass across, because I know people don't have time to read. I'm fine, but people who have work and kids and dogs and whatever else they have the responsibility to, they will go and they have to do that, and they don't get a chance to read books. So I'd like to think that I can at least sit down and read the books, and maybe when you're out walking your dogs, that you can put in your earphones and listen to me talk about certain incidents. And I'm going to give my opinions and stuff as well, but it's going to be like a pop culture slash history show now. Um, and for people who were tuning in for mental health, that will be touched on all the time, because I'll have to talk about myself still, about how I'm feeling and if I'm in my struggles or whatever. But also, there's going to be stuff that we're going to be bringing up on the episodes about mental health, and to do with we talk about people struggling with mental health now, but like, people struggled with it all through, the centuries, obviously. Um, and when I do go into history, and when do go into people, if there is people who talked about, or there's a mention of mental health problems in and around them, or the families and stuff, obviously I'm going to talk about that, and how it was dealt with back, in the 60s or whatever, compared to how it's dealt now. So it's still going to be a mental health podcast, and we'll still always be talking about it, and keeping it to the forefront of the podcast. Um, I think, that what I was saying about the main reason we wanted to get rid of video. For me, the main reason I wanted to get rid of video is I can edit in stuff now. So when I talk about an album that people may not have heard, or a film they may not have seen, I can cut pieces of music or pieces of the film and edit it into the episode. So when I talk about a song in particular, I can at least say, well, I'm talk. There's a great bass line in this song, and then I can edit in the bass line of the song. I can't do this on Zoom because it doesn't allow it. It would literally upload the episode, and when I'm finished, I swap it over to MP3, and that's it done. Now John can do a little bit of editing with regards to putting the music on the start of the YouTube video and stuff like that when we do it. But we don't have the opportunity to edit. So at least, and I didn't want to have a situation where I was doing edits on the podcast platforms and not doing on the YouTube, because then you don't get a full, you know, listen to the episode as I would like to put it out. So the main reason for me, and there's a lot of possibilities with sound edits on podcasts to back up theories, and if I'm talking about a particular person, there might be parts of speeches that would be of interest, and even of like proper importance to the person, so that we can back up what they're saying or their claims or stuff. Because we've got, like, I don't want to I don't want to blow my own horn here, but I do read a lot, right? And I have a lot of stuff that's fascinated me over the years, from the the obvious references that I make. People know that I talk about the Beatles all the time, and Raymond Carver's short stories, and the 12 Angry Men, all these kind of things. But I like the weird stuff as well, that someone like John Ronson would look into, or Louis Theroux. So those kind of things are going to come up, um, as well. And the ideas of even what I was talking about, the book I'm reading at the moment, like the paranoia within governments, and the stuff that we didn't hear about, or not me because I wasn't born in some instances, but what the people didn't hear about, until this kind of stuff was made freely available to people. And then all of a sudden we're kind of thinking Ted Heath was a bit strange in his second term and all. I think it's Ted Heath. I might be getting it mixed up with Harold Wilson, but I'm sure it's Ted Heath who had the second term in the 70s. But um, someone out there will know, and surely they'll correct me. Oh, by the way, I have lost 3 kilograms since you last seen me, so cheers to that. I'm doing it very sensibly. So it's more protein in the diet. It's a lot of water, an awful lot of water. Trust me. A little bit more fruit and stuff like that. But what I've found, I like, even back then when I was talking about in the 31st of July, I was so tired and even grumpier than usual, and that's bad. And I was struggling to kind of get motivated for a run. I'd go into the gym and I'd do my training and that, but I was really struggling to get motivated for a run. And now I like can't get enough of it. Now I had a little a couple of little injuries that are kind of still hampering me a little bit in how, that maybe the pace I run, but it's not really about that. It's just I like the distance and things. So like I ran, this Saturday morning I'm recording this. So I ran last Saturday, then Tuesday, then Thursday, then Saturday. That's the most 12 kilometers each time. That's the most I've ran in a long time. And it's because my body feels a lot better with what I'm putting into it. And that, like I said, over the last 3 weeks, I've lost 3 kg, but I've lost them in the first week. You always lose a lot more because you water retention, stuff like that. So I lost 1.4 and then I lost point something, so it's in a real steady way of doing it. And you feel a lot better. And like I said, it's just not eating as much crap as I was eating because I'm a bad man for like, if you ask my younger brother if he knows I'm coming over to his house for like to stay the night and visit the kids and all that, he makes sure to get the biscuits in. I'm like the cookie monster, as they say, and I wouldn't just eat one; I'd eat a packet. So I have been very much more controlled when it comes to my biscuit intake. So it's like five. I have five after my dinner with a cup of tea, five digestive biscuits with a cup of tea, and that's enough. And I was going mad on that on them, but yeah, so I feel a bit better now. I'm running more and sleeping better because of the running. Probably sleeping earlier. I went to sleep at 8:30 the other night, and I got up at 5 in the morning because I was ready to go. I always get up at 5:45 anyway. So I was up and I was ready, and it's a good way to be. Even this morning I got up and I was actually running by 6:45, and the sun was just coming up, and it's like 14 degrees. Really weird temperature the last couple of days, but it was lovely. But anyway, that's an aside. So a couple of ideas. I'm not going to give you too many ideas because I have quite a few. But the couple that came into my mind first, I really wanted to dig deep into the Dylan Goes Electric thing. Um, I wanted to dig deep into Eddie Vedder or Pearl Jam versus Ticketmaster because of the whole Oasis thing that happened there recently. I wanted to talk about when Eddie Vedder went up against them and the band Pearl Jam, obviously, they really went after Ticketmaster. They really pushed back against them because of the charges they were charging. And it's interesting. I read it yesterday where Dylan Vedder, Eddie Vedder was like, cutting it at $18 a ticket. He said that's the highest price to go, but Ticketmaster wanted an extra $4 to $8 for every ticket, which would have pushed it obviously up to 22 or $26. And that's quite an increase when you think of it. And he was having none of it. So the band decided on that tour that year in 1995 that they were going to sort this out and deal with it themselves and not go through Ticketmaster. But it's a really interesting topic because it went to like a Senate hearing and everything, and Pearl Jam turned up at it looking like grunge dudes. So that was a really good idea. A history of book burning. That's another kind of interesting topic to me. I have a book waiting to go. Actually, I haven't started it yet about book burning and like we always heard about the Nazis that were the ones that burnt the books, but it goes back a long way. And they're not quite burning them now, but they're certainly banning them with the same kind of principles or same ideas for they're doing it. But um, it's it's um it's a mental thing for someone who likes to read as much as I do that people would burn books and burn knowledge and ideas just because they disagreed with them. It's mad. I just don't like there's books out there that I know I'd hate. I just don't read them. That's how I stay away from them. I would never burn a book for. So like there's a lot of research in all these subjects, and I really want to get into them. And there'll be episodes where maybe I'm talking about ideas and an incident that happened in history. And some might be like half an hour long, but then some might be an awful lot longer. Like the Beatles idea I had was the White Album. And I'd like to do like when I think Revolver is the Beatles' best album, but I think the White Album is the Beatles' most fascinating album because of the lead up to it, where the Beatles were at after coming back from India and having written songs while they were away, the cracks in the relationship beginning to show, how they were recorded in like Lennon was recording in Studio 2 while McCartney was in Studio 1, and maybe Harrison was in Studio 3, and Ringo was running between all three studios to drum. And um the start of the cracks and the start of almost solo albums, and George maybe starting to kind of really wanting to get his songs on the album. So, and if people don't know, well, the White Album's a double album and it's got many strange and beautiful sounds on it. And that'd be one that maybe would slip into a two part episode. if it does go to a two-part episode, I'm not going to release one in part and then release the next like 3 weeks after. It's going to be I'll release one part and then the next the week after. I won't leave a huge gap if there's a two-parter, but otherwise it'll be like I said, 2, 3, 4 weeks between each one. Um, and I think when I was talking about like not having any guests, there may be an idea or a space for a guest to come in to talk about something like that. You know, if someone had written about the White Album or someone who was like a music critic who wanted to talk about the White Album, I'd love to have Donald Clark on to talk about the White Album. If you don't know who he is, he's a film critic from the Irish Times, I think, or Irish Independent. No, it's Times, I think. And he's a really good film critic, but he actually hates the White Album, and he does like the Beatles and all that. He said it in many times, but he really despises the White Album, and I just think it's funny, and I just think he'd be great to have on to talk about the White Album because it's he goes up against me like a Beatles purist who I understand the flaws in the White Album, but I wouldn't want to see it be deconstructed for any reason. I remember George Martin said on a document. George Martin was the Beatles producer, if you didn't know, but he he said on a documentary that it would have made a brilliant single album and cut out some of the double stuff. And you kind of think to yourself, well, maybe Revolution 9 could go, but then you kind of think it would have leave this gaping chasm of not having that weirdness and experimental, you know, ideas. You'd wonder. It is a skipper though. Like I've got my dad bought me the White Album a number of years ago, and I'd get up off the seat and just skip it to the next song. But I don't know if I'd like it taken off the album. That doesn't make any sense. I know that. You know, that's not the first time you've heard me not make any sense. But I think like when I really think about why I came back and why I wanted to do something different, when I thought of this idea, I mean, it's not a new idea. There's hundreds of podcasts that do this, but everybody has fresh opinions and fresh takes on what we listen to and what we watch and what we hear and all that stuff. And when I thought that I could do justice to some things, and maybe injustice to others, but if I could do justice to some things, I'd like to do it. And I think this route into popular culture and history would give me an opportunity to really, you know, kind of share my ideas on certain subjects, and it'll give me a little bit of a spring in my step, and it's something that excites me. I like having to go down rabbit holes, and I like um getting stuck into certain things. And I'm not going to tell you the first episode what it's going to be yet because I'm this is like I said, this is Saturday. This will be going out Wednesday. You'll hear this on Wednesday, but from Monday just coming up now will be the first day of me researching the first topic. So I've got whatever 48 hours to pick what it's going to be, and then I'm going to give myself 2 or 3 weeks. So it'll be 2 or 3 weeks before the next episode is out. Um, so I'm really looking forward to it. I am excited about it, and I'm glad I didn't quit. I had conversations with my mom. I had conversations with Josh, Joanne about the idea of just getting rid of it, and or Josh said maybe it's the ending of a chapter and starting of a new one, and maybe music is your next port of call and your next project that you want to do. And in that moment he was absolutely right, and I felt even stronger about my idea of quitting and starting something new. But then it takes some time to get these ideas going, and when they do, you're all of a sudden they start flowing, and you start thinking, well, I could do something on that, and I could do something on that, and then you start making lists, and then you start getting excited about it. And I think that's where we are. So I'm looking forward to sharing my next episode with you. I feel I've knocked the idea of driving on the head for a bit. It doesn't make financial sense at the moment. It's more, like I said, I have 10 episodes. I had, sorry, 10 episodes, 10 lessons done. And I think when I began, the lessons, I was living out the country. So it was like 20 minutes on the bike in. And it just didn't, I needed to sort out the car because in the winter and that, and but then I moved, and now I'm just down the road from the gym, and like there's a bus stop around the corner and stuff, and obviously, the bike, which I'll go into in the minute, is having me had a couple of knocks the same day actually about the bike, and but so it would it just be sitting in at the front of my apartment there, and would I only drive when it was raining or like into town very rarely or whatever, and it just would seem like I'm pay for you have to pay for insurance, you have to pay for tax, you have to pay for the car obviously. So it just didn't make financial sense at the moment, and I'm disappointed because I want to get to have a bit of crack with Paul anymore. But but it was an interesting experience, and I look, I'm not saying I wouldn't go back to it either, and it'll be Paul I'll go back to because he's such a great teacher. Sherry School of Motoring, if you want to look into that, that's Paul's company, and they're on Instagram and that. Um, but he's very patient, and he's a really good person for helping people with anxiety, I think, as well, because he's able to kind of disarm you a little bit when you are worrying and when you are like freaked out in traffic or whatever it might be. He's quite good at jumping in and having a chat when he needs to, and being serious when he needs to too. So yeah, give him a shout if you're thinking of starting to drive and or getting updates on lessons or whatever it might be. But yeah, I'm just, for now, it's on the head, knocked it on the head, and we might go back to it. Also, my bike and my piano gave up on me, which is very disappointing. My bike had a problem with the electric thing, in the motor, and trying to cycle that with no electric thing is like trying to cycle a tank. It's awful. So I brought it in, and it doesn't seem that there's anything we can do. Pamela out there in Buckley's Cycles in Athlone here, she tried everything she possibly could, and she just couldn't figure out the ways. So the bike is going to its eternal resting place in the Athlone Recycling Centre. The piano, very disappointed in that. It gave up on me again. It's an old piano. So that again will be going to the Athlone Recycling Centre. I will be buying a new piano for sure because I was really getting back into it, and I love like I kind of love writing songs on the piano because it's so different to writing songs on guitar. It opens up a whole new world altogether, I think. Probably because I'm better. No, it's not because I'm better on the piano. It's just because I'm more experimental on the piano because I'm not as rigorous as to chords as I am with the guitar. That's probably a better way of putting it. But I'll be getting a new piano. I have a bike for now. I've got, one of the lads in the gym, Dara, who gave me a lend, and I'm out, using that for now. But I will be getting a bike to run around with. I won't be getting an electric bike again though, because with all the problems I went through, I'm just thinking I'll just stick to manual, just use my legs a bit more to be so lazy. But that kind of sums it up for now. I had a nice break. I'm glad to be back. I'm looking forward to starting something different and sharing all of this with you. And you know, give me a couple of weeks, give me 2 or 3 weeks. But if you don't follow us on Instagram, go on over to the Wheatley on Instagram and follow us, and on Facebook, because I will be sharing little hints as we approach the time for the new episode, and it'll be. Some people will get it immediately, and then some people won't. But I'll be trying some cryptic stuff over there. So if you haven't followed us over there, please do so. Thanks to John for all the years of doing our YouTube channel. I was chatting to him the other day, and I will still be needing him for edits with regards to the podcast, but he won't have to do his weekly YouTube stuff anymore because that's bye bye to it. So yeah, also I want to thank my mum and dad, my granddad, Jern Calvin, as always. I always do. And if you another thing, if you can help us with the podcast platforms now, I don't need to get you to subscribe to YouTube anymore, but we have a vast backlog of episodes that you can still listen to over there with great guests. Follow us on our on the God, platform of choice. I know you can just go dip in and out on Spotify and Apple and all that, but you can also subscribe. And if you would subscribe to the episodes, or sorry, the podcast, and that would be really helpful, especially going forward. And look, thanks very much for tuning in after so long. If you have done so, for sticking with us. And like I said, keep an eye out for the polls in the future when we put up some ideas for different episodes, and we asked you to give your ideas of what you'd like hear me talk about. But for now, I'm off. It's a sunny day today, and it was a beautiful morning for a run. But it looks lovely out there. I might sit out the front and have a cup of tea. It sounds nice. Although there is this massive cat that just sits on my table at the front, and he does not care if I'm there at all. Like he won't move. Basically, he's bullied me into my apartment. But yeah. Listen, thanks very much, everyone. I'll be back in 2 or 3 weeks, like I said, for something completely different. All right, take care. Bye.